2402 lecture number 4 over pregnancy and development. Go. So now we're going to still talk about more fetal development. In this case, we'll talk about the fetal circulation. Now, as you remember from lab, it's different than in an adult, because in an adult, we're getting all of our oxygen from these two organs right here, the lungs, and we're getting rid of all of our CO2 there. So we want to send, as you know, deoxygenated blood to the lungs to get oxygenated and drop off the CO2 and pick up oxygen, etc., right? And then drop it off on the left side of the heart where you can pump it to the body and everybody gets nice oxygen. Well, in this little critter here who's floating in a fluid in the dark in a uterus, it doesn't have, its lungs are full of amniotic fluid. So what the little fetus wants to do is exchange nutrients and waste and oxygen and CO2 with this placenta with the mother. So the baby's getting all of its nutrients and oxygen through this tube and getting rid of all of its waste and CO2 through this tube. So we need a completely separate pathway of circulation so that every cell gets oxygen, even these lungs, because they are not a source, they require it now. So let's go over some of the structures. Placenta, we've already talked about it. Here's what it does. There it is. And these are the umbilical arteries and vein. In this case, the umbilical arteries are the blue ones going this way, and the umbilical vein is the single red one coming this way, right? The ductus venosus. The ductus venosus is this little tube right here. So here's the umbilical vein. That's this tube right here. Umbilical vein, blah, 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 right? This is the ductus venosus. And the ductus venosus is a direct port to the vena cava. Now, you don't want to send it through capillary bed, so you kind of bypass this liver. Send a couple of blood vessels there, but mostly bypasses it, goes straight to the vena cava. So ductus venosus, that's what its job is, to kind of connect the umbilical vein to the vena cava. Let's talk about a structure in the heart, the foramen ovale. The foramen ovale, this is a close-up of the atria. So this is the right atrium and left atrium. In an adult, this is blocked, right? This is closed off. In an embryo and a fetus, they're connected because this blood, right in the right atrium, it just came from the vena cava, which just came from the umbilical vein. So this is the most oxygenated blood you're going to have. You want to share it with the lungs. So you're going to share it with the lungs and the body. So you share it. You go to the left side and right side. You kind of mix it. So that way the left side's going to get some oxygen directly. The right side's going to get some oxygen directly. Oxygenated blood will go to the lungs. Oxygenated blood will go out through both the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. The Ductus Arteriosus is another blood sharer. So up here, if you remember the aorta, there it comes. And then this pulmonary trunk, right there, okay? So these guys are normally separate, but a ductus arteriosus is a connection between them. And you see this little tube right there. It's kind of small, sorry. Biggest I could make it, actually. But there's that tube. So not only do you share blood here, left and right are shared, you share blood here, left and right are shared. So it's a kind of a thorough mixing of the two sides of blood, meaning that the rest of the body, all parts of the body, get kind of equal oxygenation. As I mentioned, the umbilical arteries and umbilical vein. The arteries are down here, and these little dudes branch off of the iliac arteries, and that's right. They come up here, and then they kind of coil around, go up to the placenta, and then oxygenation occurs. You pick up some nutrients, drop off carbon dioxide, yada yada, drop off waste, urea, and then here comes this tube back again. This is the umbilical vein. Remember, vein goes towards the heart, arteries go away from the heart. The embryo is up through 8 weeks. You call it an embryo from week 1 to week 8, and then enough developmental changes have taken place that whoever classifies this kind of thing call the organism a fetus at that point. So once you get to week 9, you're a fetus. Prior to that, you're an embryo. Here is a small, I promise, here's a small summary table. Any second now? There it goes. That kind of summarizes the stuff I already talked about. And then we'll look finally, this is the last video. We'll look finally at the effects on the mother. Can't forget that. When you're talking about pregnancy and development, there's a mom that has to put up with the whole thing. So here are some developmental changes that the mother experiences during pregnancy and labor. Let's see if any of these are not obvious. Pelvis widens. So the pelvis is kind of a solid 6-part structure, if you remember, and it's connected at the front middle by that pubic symphysis. What happens during pregnancy is that enzymes will act on it to cause that pubic connection to kind of dissolve and loosen, so that the pelvis actually becomes wider. I'm using my hands to kind of wobble them around now. I should have put it on camera, but that allows the baby, because the baby has to come out through that canal, right? They have to come out through that hole in the pelvis, and if the head gets stuck, well, evolutionarily speaking, that's double fatality. Nowadays, you can do C-sections and so on, but it's a very high period of mortality, and you want that transition to being a baby to be as easy as possible, so the pelvis gets looser. You may experience morning sickness and heartburn and constipation. Keep in mind that uterus is pushing on all those organs. As that baby starts to take up space, it's displacing your small intestine. It's pushing on your bladder. It's pushing on your large intestine, right? And it can obstruct a lot of the normal stuff that you've been able to do without a thought. Your tidal volume increases because you're breathing for 2, so you naturally just breathe deeper. Your blood volume increases in case you lose any during childbirth. Your CO2, cardiac output and blood pressure can vary. They go up or down depending on the stage. And then lastly, hopefully we get to labor. Labor is basically childbirth, and there are 3 stages of it that occur about 9 months after fertilization. First stage, called the dilation stage, and this is on a slide I have next, but I'll talk about it first. The dilation stage, you may have heard somebody talk about an expecting mother is dilated to X number of millimeters. Well, that's because there's a combination of factors going on. The baby's getting bigger and its head is pushing on that cervix. You're also contracting. It's biologically timed to give birth, so the mother's uterus starts to squeeze rhythmically, and those contractions increase in frequency and they get stronger. So you go through this dilation stage, which has kind of a range, until you start to get to the point where you're actually going to give birth. And they call that the expulsion stage. And that's kind of harsh sounding, right? But you're going to expel that baby. You want him out, right? That embryo, that fetus is kind of a parasite. It wants as much nutrients as it can. It wants to have the greatest chance of success as it can. But in doing so, it's taking energy from you as the mother. Once it's born, it still takes energy from both parents, obviously, till it's 18 or older. But eventually, you want to get it to that next stage. You want to get it to baby stage, right? So squeeze, the baby pushes farther, squeeze harder, baby pushes harder. The whole time you're producing oxytocin, which you remember causes uterine contractions. Once that baby is born, boop, okay, then you enter the placental stage. There's still something left. There is a placenta and some tubes and stuff that are still inside the uterus, which have to be given after birth to. And so that placenta then detaches and is expelled. Then you can begin the process of letting the parasite feed on you from the outside. So first thing you do is, as a mother, is produce something called colostrum. These are all important things. I don't have them in green, but know this stuff. Colostrum, which is a initial quote unquote milk that's very high in protein. It's not true milk. But then after 2 or 3 days, the proper lactation kicks in, which produces actual milk, which is higher in fats, higher in lactose, and this is stimulated by prolactin. As we remember, prolactin causes you to make it, and then ejection is aided by oxytocin. Here's the last slide I was promising you. Now, your book doesn't have the same captions as me, But here's what happens when you're in dilation. So baby's starting to push, cervix opening, starting to get bigger still. Expulsion stage, right? It should hopefully go quick. You want it to go like, hey, there's the baby, it's crowned. Bloop, and come right out. But sometimes they get stuck here for a while. And my sympathies to all mothers and future mothers. No thanks. So then you get the placental stage. So there's that placenta and some tubes still left in there, and those are ultimately expelled. And that's it. That's video 4, and that's all for pregnancy and development for the lecture.